Oil just dropped 14 bucks in 2 days and nobody saw it coming. Not Wall Street, not the talking heads, not even the algorithms. So what the hell just happened? Was it the war premium collapsing, a Trump bombshell, or the big players setting up for something massive? Because if you're paying attention, this might be the biggest opportunity of the year. Let's get Nick on. Nick, welcome back on the show, buddy. It's always great talking options with you. Let's dive right into this and get right into it. Now, let's start with just talking oil prices and geopolitics. I mean, we had obviously a huge escalation in the Middle East. So everyone can read their own headlines on it, but crude oil goes ripping up to 78 bucks on the upside, and then Trump is comes out and talking oil down, and we basically have seen oil go from a $78 high over at the start of the weekend to basically breaking down to a $64 handle right now. Just an extraordinary reversal. And I wanted to talk about, so here we have the chart on it. You can see this just 2 day drop right in here. And one of the things I wanted to just discuss is like, it's not just crude oil reversing. Like me and you talked about the crude oil trade and Exxon Mobil back over here when these things were just beginning to break out, and it ended up being fantastic trades that
Yep.
that we ended up having great success on. But the big question here is there a trading opportunity right now on crude oil? And one of the things that I wanted to particularly observe is the implied volatilities on crude, because crude oil spiked up here to almost a 75% implied volatility, which basically means the cost of calls and puts doubled in their prices in a span of a week. And here we have now a complete collapse of the volatility during this pullback. And so we now have a scenario where just even a few days ago, putting on an options trade in the oil market was just out of reach. And suddenly here, we have a scenario where suddenly you could trade a more reasonable vol level on oil. The question is, is this one of these scenarios where it's already over? Trump just walking it back and it's thing. And I mean, I know you wanted to talk about a comparison. What's on your mind?
So I was looking at the comparison between today and what happened with the Russia-Ukraine war when it kicked off, and what happened with oil back then. So if you pull up the chart again,
Yeah.
you can see what happened back during the
So here was the rally that
mhm,
happened back in the start of 2022, leading up to the confrontation.
yeah,
And then subsequently, we can see that oil had a very big and deep reversion in the year that followed, right? Like it was the prototypical buy rumor sell news event.
yeah. And I think the primary difference now is that we're seeing global trade slow down a little bit with all this tariff talk, whereas back then we were kind of reopening from COVID and the economy was kind of expanding at that point in time. So comparable for sure in terms of there being a war between Israel and Iran right now. Back then it was Ukraine, Russia. So we saw that initial pop off, but now we're seeing a more muted response on the weekend. My phone was blowing up when the U.S. dropped those bombs on the various sites in Iran, and everyone is saying, "Oh, fill up your cars with gas." Oil's going to $100 a barrel, and I was just thinking in my head, I'm like, will this actually cause the price of oil to go to $100 per barrel? And I thought, probably not. I thought like one of my friends was actually saying, my puts are going to hit hard on Monday, and I said, I don't know about that. Right now, our gamma in the market is pretty well pinned to like either chop or a little bit of upside, perhaps.
Yeah.
And people need to understand that markets don't move based on logic. Like you wouldn't like logically speaking, you'd think, okay, yeah, there's a war happening in the Middle East and it's going to affect one of the OPEC countries. Oil prices should be higher, and that's not the case here, right? So
Yeah.
finding asymmetries of risk in the market, and as you pointed out, with the implied volatility spiking on oil to that double what it usually is, that made options very expensive, which actually may be the reason why we're seeing prices come down right now.
Absolutely. While I'm living life a little dangerously here, after such an extraordinary move on the short term, I just opened up some bull call spreads on the front month crude oil futures contracts between 67 to 71. And I'm looking just for crude oil to give us a bounce. Like I think that I don't think that all of the risk premium should be taken out of this market. Maybe 78 was rich. I think Goldman Sachs was saying there was a $10 risk premium being priced in. Well, shit, we're $14 off the intraday high,
Yeah.
and so there's a point where at this stage, crude oil has now literally in 24 hours withdrawn that entire risk premium, and I don't think that risk premium should be zero. And so looking for a bounce to see get back towards $70. But let's see. I put some skin in the game. We're gonna find out whether it works or not. Any
Yeah.
final thoughts you had on oil and the trades we put on?
I would say I agree with that. Overall, like, how people say that you see exaggerated moves in the markets. I call them hyperbolic moves, right? Because they're kind of hyperbolic in nature. And so I think you're correct that a bounce back to that 70 area is within very good reason overall. But back to what your question was, final thoughts. Always manage your risk, guys. And if you can do something nice for someone else in the world, do something nice for someone else in the world. At a time now when we're seeing these wars and political divide, remember life is short. Enjoy life and go out and be happy and help other people to be happy as well.
There you go. All right, Nick, where can they find you, buddy?
Optionfinity.com. It'll be linked below. And if you want to drop me a line on that website, you can. There's a form to fill out. I reply to all emails, and yeah, chat with you guys there.
All right. Well, thanks, Nick. We're looking forward to doing another hit with you. Cheers.
Likewise. Cheers.